Ladies and gentlemen, cue the Cam Newton sound effect. We are back. Plead Your Case is in full effect on WCTV now. Myself, Logan Lepiscopo, will be hosting the first episode of the school year. And I'll be joined by a fine line of gentlemen to discuss the topics today: NBA, MLB, NFL. And we'll also have our first Pick'em segment with a little bit of a twist from last year. So sit back, relax. It's time to plead your case. Our first segment to talk about on Plead Your Case is the MLB postseason. By now, maybe the Rangers are crowned World Series champs. Maybe the Diamondbacks have forced a Game 6. But before we talk about that, we're going to go back in the postseason and introduce my panel: Spencer Frattare, Joe Venzel, Will Yocum. Those are the guys joining me today on Plead Your Case. And gentlemen, we had a lot of things happen earlier in the postseason that not a lot of fans were expecting. Will, I'll throw it to you down the line first. What was your biggest thing that you saw in the postseason before this World Series?
Orioles fell. They fell big time. They got swept immediately in the ALDS, and that's not something I expected. I mean, I knew something like that was going to happen. I did expect the series loss. I just didn't expect a sweep, especially how well we performed. We were a very young team. We were in a very bad spot, and we just ended up getting over 100 wins, something that has not been done in Baltimore in a very long time. And I mean, for me personally, I was just happy to see them there, but to get swept, that was just disturbing to watch.
And Joe, the biggest thing I think we have to mention, the Atlanta Braves, 104-win team, the most winning team in the MLB, bounced first round of the postseason.
You know, Logan, they faced a hot team in the Philadelphia Phillies. I mean, the Braves were the hottest team going into this postseason, I should say, but the Philadelphia Phillies had something behind them, more of a purpose to get where they, ended up losing, unfortunately. But when the Braves run into a team like that, it's going to be tough to stop that momentum going forward.
And Spencer, we obviously had, the sweep of the Orioles. The Braves get bounced. Which one, in your eyes, was the biggest upset of this postseason?
Yes, I think when it comes down to it, Joe mentioned how hot the Braves were, but we all know that Philly plays a lot better in the postseason, which is, I think, why it was a little surprising to see that Philly ended up falling to the Diamondbacks. They looked like they were going to play so well. They looked like they were going to win Game 6, which they did, and then go in and win Game 7, but they weren't able to pull it off, and now you have this World Series of the Diamondbacks and the Rangers, and quite honestly, I think I can speak for all of us. I don't think any of us saw it happen. The only way I can believe it is if someone shows me their bet slip. I just didn't see these two teams to be in the World Series.
And gentlemen, speaking of the uncertainty of what happened this postseason and moving forward, we have these two teams, the Rangers and the Diamondbacks. Nobody expected them to be there. Do we think that either of these teams could potentially make this type of Cinderella run again? I mean, free agency's coming up. A lot of guys leaving and moving teams. Do we think we could see the Rangers or Diamondbacks back in this situation?
Rangers, potentially. I mean, I think the Rangers definitely. Diamondbacks, this is definitely a Cinderella year for them. I mean, if they do well in the offseason with trades and everything, maybe. I'm pulling for them in this World Series. I'm pulling them to pull out a Game 7 just like they did back in 2002. They were able to do it then. They could do it now. But definitely the Rangers are a team to look out for. They've been dangerous this postseason. They could be dangerous going into the next season.
I have to agree on Will with the fact of the Rangers. I mean, the Rangers finally found their core that worked, and that was Adolis Garcia and Corey Seager. I mean, they're hitting the ball extraordinarily well right now in the postseason. But the Diamondbacks, I was very high on them in the regular season. Corbin Carroll, Cy Young finalist Zach Gallen. But pitching for the Diamondbacks has been their struggle this postseason, is that they get past their two guys or three guys that they might have. As soon as they get into that bullpen, it's unfortunate. And they're in Diamondback town. So.
Yeah, guys, but the thing with Cinderella stories is that's kind of the story of it. You see in March Madness, you'll have a 16-seed team run it, but you never know if they're going to do this again. So, again, it comes down to what both of you honestly stated. What moves will the Diamondbacks and the Rangers make in the offseason? Will they be good moves? Will they be bad moves? Will they be moves that will allow them to not be Cinderella teams next year, but to be teams that will be the 1 or 2 seed, or will be teams that are guessed and predicted to go to the MLB World Series? So it's really all what happens in this offseason for the World Series.
And I'm going to kind of disagree with Will and Joe on the Diamondbacks being the team that could potentially. I think the Rangers are in a lot of trouble come this postseason. They have a lot of their pitchers getting ready to hit free agency. They have their closer, Will Smith, leads the team with 22 saves. Next closest is 4. You got to bring that guy back. Then you have Chapman set to hit free agency. That's your setup guy. Then you have a ton of your starters in the rotation. You have Haney, Perez, Montgomery, all those guys getting ready to hit free agency. I just don't think if the Rangers win this, they have the money to bring all of them back.
The only rebuttal that I might have to you is that their core has been doing so well with Adolis Garcia and Corey Seager of that relation. I mean, we've seen teams with, in my opinion, worse pitching
100%.
in this World Series. So, I mean, unfortunately, Will, but like it's true. If you have those 9 guys that can go out there and score 4 or 5 runs, I mean, 10-1 the last game of this recording, but I mean, I don't really see that being a factor too much.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you have the money to bring those guys back? Do you just look to get different pitchers? Because I think it might get to the point where can the bats really just win them every single game?
You know what? The winner of this World Series, in my opinion, will determine that factor.
That's fair. That is definitely fair. So we touched on the Braves, obviously, getting bounced. We touched on, sorry, Will, but I'm going to bring it up again, your Orioles getting bounced as well. Do we think that either of the teams that got put out early, even the Dodgers, the Brewers, those teams that got put out early, can we expect any of them to potentially be in the same seats as the Rangers Diamondbacks in the next couple of years or maybe even next year?
I think the Orioles can go back. I mean, they did it this year, and we talked about earlier about the bats winning them games. That's exactly what the Orioles did. The bats won them the games. We were just now we were like an inconsistent offense, but we were consistent enough to get over 100 wins. Brewers, they're in a division. I mean, both in the American League and the National League, that Central Division just is like up and down, not really that good. They could sneak in, just like bringing it to football. If you're in a team in the NFC South, you can be, under 500 and make it into the postseason. Brewers can do the same thing there. As for the Dodgers, they're the powerhouse of the West. I mean, from the past couple of years, the Padres have been the only ones to kind of just be toe-to-toe with them. Now it's the Diamondbacks. It's all possible for all these teams to make a comeback next year.
One team that surprised me was the Minnesota Twins. Coming in first round, sweeping a hot Toronto Blue Jays team and running into a wall, which is the Houston Astros. I mean, the biggest dynasty in baseball of the last 7 seasons. But I believe that with their rotation and their solid guys, I believe that the Twins can make a run for it.
Spencer, I'm just going to put you on the spot here. Your Cleveland Guardians. What's going to happen with them? Could they have a chance? Make some moves maybe?
Listen, it comes down to like the Orioles. The Orioles, I agree with Will. I think they're going to be in a great spot next year because of how young they are. And these young teams, you've got to give them 2 or 3 years. As a guy who's worked in that organization, there's a lot of good guys. And same with the Baltimore organization. There are a lot of good players in these AA and AAA organizations that just need a year or 2 to get into the system. So I think when it comes down to Baltimore or Guardian or any of these teams with young rosters, there was a really good chance we could see the Baltimore Orioles in 2 years or the Guardians in 2 or 3 years to be in these 1 seeds or to be the teams facing off in the World Series. There's a lot of teams with a lot of young, good talent.
So at the time of us recording this, it's 3-1 in the series. Do we think that it's closed out tonight with the Rangers, 4-1 final, or do we think that the Diamondbacks are going to push it another game? We'll go down the line.
Yeah, no, I'm sticking with my statement earlier. It's just like 2002 all over again. That's when a lot of us were born here. They can pull it to a Game 7. That's what everybody wants to see. That's what they're going to do. So I'm going with Diamondbacks in 7.
As much as I am a fan of this Diamondbacks team, I don't think they get it done. I think the Rangers win tonight.
It pains me to agree with Joe, but after Garcia being out and still being able to win their last game and now up 3-1, winning without one of your best players, again, I was hopeful for the Diamondbacks to make the comeback, but after that last game, give me the Rangers. They're going to complete it tonight.
I'm sorry, Will Yocum. Yeah. You are going to be the lone man here.
I'm sorry.
We're leaving you on the island. But, gentlemen, that's going to wrap up our MLB segment. When we come back, we're going to hit the hardwoods with the NBA. So stay tuned on Plead Your Case.
You're watching WCTV, where we aim to bring you the best local coverage of what you care about most. Everything from local businesses to hometown sports and the latest weather. We're keeping up to date with what you need to know about issues that affect our campus and our community. We're telling the stories that matter, celebrating our past, our future, and our potential. So tune in for all the latest buzz right here on WCTV Channel 14, Waynesburg.
Welcome back to the first NFL Pick'em segment of the year. I'm Anthony DeFilippo, the new producer for Plead Your Case. With limited semester time, I'm going to explain how this is going to work. Last year, we saw a King of the Hill format. That isn't something I wanted to bring back this year. Instead, we'll be doing an 8-person tournament over the next 4 weeks. In the 5th and final episode of the semester, the top 2 performers overall will compete for the ultimate champion. To avoid ties, the tiebreaker will be the score of that week's Monday Night Football game. Without further anticipation, let's reveal this week's matchup. To my right, I have formidable Steelers fan, Logan Arblaster, and to my left, I have known rival to Logan Arblaster, Ravens fan, Ryan Martin. Gentlemen, how are we doing today?
I'm excited to be on, and I'm excited for the new format, Anthony.
Yeah.
Martin.
I'm excited to win.
Listen, let's start it off hot with the first game on the schedule, the Thursday night football game. It is Tennessee Titans, Pittsburgh Steelers. Logan, I'll start with you first. I feel like we'll have no surprise here.
Yeah, I'm going with the Steelers. You see the jersey I'm wearing. I couldn't wear George Pickens, my favorite player, because I wear it so much that it was dirty. It's actually wrinkled up in my room right now. But I'm taking the Steelers. 3 home games in a row. You have to win the next 2 if you're the Steelers, coming off that tough loss to the Jags. They lost because of the refs. If you watch the game, you know what I'm talking about. But I'm taking the Steelers over the Tennessee Titans on Thursday Night Football.
Martin?
Well, I'm going to have to disagree. And saying they lost the game because of the refs is absolutely ridiculous, all right? They always have an opportunity to score. If you're going to score, don't blame it on the refs, you know? You went 3 and out.
We did have opportunities to score, but have you ever seen in 17 years of watching football an offsides called on a field goal attempt, Ryan? An offsides called on a field goal.
I mean, you got to discipline your players better then.
Discipline your players? How does that have anything to do with the players?
The Steelers, and he's
Will Levis did play better last week.
I'd say 2 touchdowns to him and D-Hop.
That was Will Levis's
100%.
first start, by the way, last week. But anyhow, let's move on to the next game. I feel like that was a good start to the fight, but let's keep it clean. Miami, Kansas City, 9:30 a.m. in Germany. Martin, we'll start with you first this time.
I'm taking the Chiefs. I know they just lost to the Broncos, but there was a report that Mahomes wasn't really feeling well, and I feel like they really get back on track. And the Dolphins really haven't beaten anybody good this season. I mean, they lost to the Bills. They got killed by the Bills. I think Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs get back to what they were playing like before the Broncos this week.
Logan.
Chiefs lost to the Broncos for the first time in 16 games. In the Patrick Mahomes era, the first time they lost to the Broncos, that team that they lost to also got beat by the Miami Dolphins earlier in the year by 70 points. I have to go with Miami Dolphins in this matchup.
Oh, my goodness.
2 different picks to start it off here. That is an interesting start. 1 p.m., let's start that slate. Minnesota, Atlanta. Will we have a third different pick? Martin, let's start with you again.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Minnesota. I know they just lost Kirk Cousins, but and I don't think Justin Jefferson's going to play this week. But Jordan Addison and TJ Hockenson is all you need on that offense. I mean, they're unbelievable. And Jordan Addison just keeps on putting up these touchdowns. I think he has about 7 touchdowns on the year now, and that's incredible for a rookie. I know he doesn't have the most yards, but he could just get behind the defense, and that's what I'm looking for.
Jaron Hall versus Taylor Heineke, Logan. Which quarterback gets it done?
I was going to say, I didn't even know the name of the quarterback for the Vikings this week. So with that said, I'm taking the Falcons. With Kirk Cousins likely out for the year, Jay Jetta is still probably out this week. I don't see how the Falcons don't win this game.
Another one that could be lopsided or split is Arizona-Cleveland. Logan, we're going to go to you first here.
Yeah, I actually have the Browns in that game. I'm taking all AFC North matchups, so I might spoil the next couple picks. But I'm taking the Browns. I think that they've looked better throughout the year, and their defense has just been amazing.
Ryan Martin.
Yeah, I hate to agree with you, but yeah, I'm going to take the Browns too, especially with the AFC North opponent. The Browns, that defense is elite. I'd say second best in the NFL. So obviously the Cardinals are not going to do anything with the new quarterback they have. I mean, they just traded Joshua Dobbs away. Give me the Browns.
Los Angeles Rams, Matthew Stafford, we don't know what's going to happen with him. And Green Bay, Jordan Love has been kind of shaky this year. Who do you got in that matchup, Logan?
I'm taking the Rams. I think they have the more playmakers over the Packers. They have Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, Matthew Stafford. As long as those guys are healthy in comparison to Jordan Love, I think that the Rams are going to win.
Ryan Martin in Lambeau Field.
I'm going to have to agree with you, Logan.
Ooh.
I mean, the Rams just have too much talent. You got Aaron Donald and Cooper Kupp. That's really all you need to win with the Rams. And the Packers, they just look terrible. I mean, they lost to the Raiders with McDaniels as their coach. I mean, how much worse can you get? So give me the Rams in this one.
2 teams that are really down this year. The Washington Commanders at the New England Patriots. Logan, what do you got there?
Yeah, well, the Patriots did beat the Bills just a few weeks ago, pulled off that upset. but I am going to go back to the Commanders with this win this week. I see the Commanders as a team that has Eric Bieniemy as the offensive coordinator. I know they've had their struggles, but they've competed against a lot of great teams this year. And I know the Patriots have too, but I just think the Patriots, they aren't that same team under Bill Belichick as they used to be.
Commanders just traded away 2 of their defensive cornerstone pieces, Martin.
Come on, give me the Patriots, all right? I mean, like you said, they got rid of Chase Young and Montez Sweat. How can you pick them? You can't. All right, the Patriots offense is terrible, all right? But they still got Bill Belichick. The Commanders have Ron Rivera.
I'll allow you to rebut there, Logan, if you have anything you want to say.
Yeah, both teams have played some pretty challenging opponents, but the Commanders played 2 really great games against the best team in the NFL this year. Would you agree the Eagles are the best team in the NFL?
Sure. Yeah.
But they lost.
And they went into overtime in one game. The other game was one score. I know they lost.
But they lost.
I know, but the Patriots aren't coming near.
But the Patriots beat the Bills.
I understand that,
top-
but the Patriots aren't
top
coming
five,
near.
top seven
They're not
team.
coming near the Eagles if they played each other one-on-one. So I'm taking the Commanders.
All right, we got a long way to go here, boys. Chicago Bears, New Orleans Saints. Let's rush through it. Logan, go for it.
Yeah, I'm going to take the New Orleans Saints. The Bears have only won 2 of their last 30 games or something along those lines. So I am going to take the Chicago Bears.
Ooh, Martin.
Wow. All right. Well, that's just.
Or not the Chicago Bears. Hold on,
I was
hold on,
going to
hold
say,
on.
what did you just say?
Not
there?
take the Chicago Bears. Not take the Chicago Bears.
Okay, we'll pull back on that.
Yeah,
Martin.
I'm going to have to agree with you, Logan.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how you could take the Chicago Bears. The Saints defense is obviously elite, top 10 in the league. They got playmakers on the offense, and I know Kamara is not used like a normal running back, but, I mean, his receiving ability is just insane, and Derek Carr likes to check downs. So I look to see them get the win here.
Martin, this one's a little personal for you. It's the Seattle Seahawks playing the Baltimore Ravens. The second to last game of the 1 o'clock slate. No surprise, probably.
Those Seahawks are really good. I'm just kidding. Give me the Baltimore Ravens, all right? They're looking like the most complete team in the league right now. They've got, I think, the second most sacks.
Most complete team in the league?
Yep, 100%.
Maybe the sloppiest team in the league. If they could clean it up, they could be 8-0 if they cleaned it up.
Oh,
I mean, come on now, Ryan.
But they
this
beat
is the
the
same
Lions.
Ravens we've watched for the last few years.
Okay, against the Steelers, yes. However, they've been getting it together in these past few weeks. You got Zay Flowers. I'm not even going to say Odell Beckham. You got Rashad Bateman. You
Nelson
got Mark
Aguilar.
Andrews.
He's great.
Nelson Aguilar is not that bad.
Odell
for the
Beckham
Ravens
like
right
he's
now.
still in his prime.
I
or
think
something.
the Ravens will blow them out by more than 10 points. Their defense, obviously, you know how that is. Geno Smith's just not that good.
Logan, I know your opinion's different based on that.
Well, I just disagree with the fact that Baltimore is the most complete team in the league because they're not.
So you got the Ravens winning.
Goodness.
Yeah, I do have the Ravens winning the game. I think that Seattle's been good throughout the year as well, but I'm taking Lamar Jackson over
Staying
Geno
true
Smith.
to the pick'em segment word there. Tampa Bay, Houston Texans. This one's a pretty easy one, maybe.
Yeah, Tampa Bay, Houston Texans. I'm going to go with Tampa Bay. I'm going to go with the Bucs because the Texans just lost to the Carolina Panthers. And the Panthers, they're the worst team in the league, in my opinion. So if you're coming off a loss to the Panthers, it's going to be a rough road ahead for you.
Houston Texans, Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
The Texans. And it's really easy. Every team has this one game where they lose. And it's the Chiefs last week. It was the Ravens against the Colts. Those games are not supposed to happen. The Bills
Stroud
lost
threw
against
for
the Patriots.
140 yards against the Panthers.
And that happens. Sometimes that happens.
How-
Sometimes
I mean,
you have
how-
a bad game. But you know
Oh,
what's
my
not going to
goodness.
happen this week? Is that he's not going to have another bad game. He's going to bounce back, and they're going to win easily.
We're just going to
I'm
cut that
riding
one.
with
That's
Baker
100%.
Mayfield.
Hey, right
I'm
there.
riding with
We're going to go
Baker
through the
Don't ride
next.
with Baker.
We're going to go through the next 2 games rapid fire. Just tell me who you think's going to win. Colts and Panthers. Logan,
Colts and Panthers. I'm going to go with the Colts.
Martin.
Yeah, that's pretty easy. I'm going to go with the Colts, too. I mean, I don't see how you get the
New York
Panthers.
Giants, Las Vegas Raiders. Logan.
I'm going to go with the New York Giants. Vegas just fired their offensive coordinator, head coach, general manager. They're clearing house in the middle of a season. How could you not pick the other team?
Martin.
Yeah, I'm going with the Giants, too. That's an easy pick.
Okay, we got 3 games left on the slate. Let's start off with the divisional matchup. Dallas Cowboys, Philadelphia Eagles. Ryan Martin, start us off.
Going with the Eagles, all right? Cowboys got beat pretty badly by the 49ers, and the Eagles are much better than the 49ers. I know that was a couple of weeks ago, and sometimes I said you have some bad games, but give me the Eagles.
Logan.
Yeah, the Cowboys always, it seems like when the lights get brighter, they always get worse. So I'm going to go with the Eagles.
All right, Sunday night matchup. This one is one we've been waiting for. It is Buffalo-Cincinnati. Logan.
Yeah, in that game, I have the Bengals. I think that the Bengals have proven in other playoff matchups that they can already beat Buffalo, and I always take Joe Burrow over Josh Allen. I'm going to take him here again.
I'm not going to take Joe Burrow. I'm going to take the Bills. Obviously, we all know what happened last year. I think they're going to come out fighting and look for the revenge game, as the Bills will win.
Monday night matchup. This is one of the worst Monday night matchups of the year. Los Angeles Chargers, New York Jets. Logan?
Yeah, I'm going to take the Jets. They played both Super Bowl teams from last season and played good games against those teams, and they've looked pretty good outside the fact that Aaron Rodgers is out, and with him out, though, the defense has still looked really solid, and I'm going to take the Jets over the Chargers.
Yep. I respect that pick, but I'm going to go with the Chargers.
Brandon Staley in primetime. Come on.
Yeah, I hate picking the Chargers, but I just can't go with Zach Wilson. I know he won 4 games this year already, but I just don't credit that to him, and I think that the Chargers defense might be able to hold them a little bit. Obviously, it's going to be a low-scoring game, but give me the Chargers.
It'll be close.
Guys, we have like 7 or 8 differences, so this is going to be a crucial week as people try to pick up wins for that 5th and final episode. But with that being said, that is going to do it for our Pick'em segment today. Make sure to stay tuned for next week. We'll reveal that matchup and for all the content here on Plead Your Case.
We are now at the hardwoods with the NBA segment. Again, same guys on the panel, Logan, Spencer, Joe, Will. We're going to start out in the Eastern Conference. I think on everybody's list, you got to have 2 teams at the top, Bucks and Celtics. Gentlemen, who is the best, though, out of those 2 teams? Joe, I'm going to start with you.
It's the Bucks, and it's not close. You acquired Damian Lillard in the offseason. They're 2-1 right now, about to play the Celtics. They play the Raptors tonight, but they are about to play the Celtics in a couple days. And they're just going to show that they are going to be at the top at the league again. Giannis, in my opinion, is still one of the top players in the NBA. Once you add Damian Lillard to that roster, it's over. In my opinion, in my humble opinion, gentlemen.
Well, unfortunately, your humble opinion is not right. So the Bucks last year really didn't prove much in the playoffs. They lost and almost got swept by the 8 seed Miami Heat, and now you have a C's team who has a young Jason Tatum. You have a young Jaylen Brown. You just added, quite honestly, one of the best defensive point guards in Drew Holiday. You pick up Porzingis, who's played great so far through this season. And this team has a ton of depth. You've got Derek White. You have Al Horford. There is so much depth on this Celtics team, and that is what the problem with the Milwaukee team is. Yeah, you have Chris Middleton, but he has slowly declined after that finals win. And quite honestly, if you compare benches, the Celtics bench overpowers the Bucks bench by 1,000,000.
You talked about last year, and that was last year. This is a new team. This is a new regime.
Right, which brings
with Damian Lillard,
correct,
with the starting one,
and
with
we don't know how that'll work.
player.
You can never assume that these super teams will be good.
You're right.
Because we saw that with the Lakers.
You're
with
right.
Westbrook, Anthony Davis, LeBron, that team was not good on paper. It was supposed to be a team that would win 2 or 3 finals.
You're right. You're right. But this team on paper should win a final. It's going to happen.
Yocum, you're giving a little crazy sign here. Who are you siding with in this argument?
I'm going with the Chicago Bulls. I don't care. I don't care about the East. Go Bulls. Go Bulls.
Biased now.
We're being biased.
I'm going to interject a little bit here. I get the addition of Dame Dalla. It's appealing. You look at it on paper, you're like, okay, you get Giannis, maybe top 3, top 5 player for sure in the NBA. You add Damian Lillard, one of the best point guards in the NBA. But I have to side with Spencer. Depth-wise, the Celtics have a much better roster than the Milwaukee Bucks. Joe, you can shake your head all you want. You know it's facts.
We said this last year. What'd they do?
But the Bucks lost to the Heat, who were the 8th seed.
A great team.
a great team,
coming
right?
out of the playoff, yeah.
But when you're the higher seed, and usually how the NBA works, there usually are no Cinderella stories, which is why some of the people why people don't like the NBA, because it's not like March Madness when it comes to the playoffs.
Well, Celtics would have won last year, and they did. So I think that we're doomed in Celtic Town.
So in the western side.
So we're doing Celtic Town.
Celtic Town. We're in Boston now, guys. We're out of Williamsburg. We're in Boston. But Spencer touched on the West. On paper, the Lakers were supposed to be an excellent team last year. That fell short. The West, I think there's only one team that you put at the top. I think it's the Nuggets. You guys could say, I know, I just saw Spencer's face there. I think the Nuggets are the best team in the West, but it's not for sure like, okay, just mark them down back-to-back champs. There's going to be competition. The West is always loaded, but it's like it's usually the Nuggets and then everybody like jumbled up in a mesh at the bottom, or in the middle at least.
I don't think you guys understand how powerful the West is this year. On my list right here, I have the Celtics, Bucks, and I do have the Cavs. That's not biased, but I think those are the only 3 teams in the East. In the West, there are 7 to 8 teams that could win the chip, and I mean that wholeheartedly. The Lakers, you can never count out LeBron, and it's the same for the Warriors. You can't count out Steph Curry with what he's done over his years in the league. Then you have a Clippers team who just added James Harden and who was good before they got that addition. You have the Mavs with Kyrie and Luka, I know we'll get to that later, but Luka right now is probably going to be the MVP this year. And then you have the Nuggets who won last year, and you even have the Suns who had Bradley Beal. The West is so deep. There's the Timberwolves. You have the Kings, Pelicans, Thunder. There are so many teams in the West that could win it.
I'm actually going to have to agree with you on that. I mean, the teams that he just listed are stacked, and yeah, I have to agree with you wholeheartedly on that.
No, I'm going to stick with the Nuggets on this one. I'm going to stick with the back-to-back because if you have a team player like Jokic on this team who cares more about his horses across the ocean than he does about the NBA and still balls out and still wins championships. I mean, come on. That's just a no-brainer. I'm going to go with the Nuggets still.
So with the Nuggets having brought back who they all had last year part of the championship team, the other teams making the additions, why are the Nuggets not – do you view the Nuggets, Joe and Spencer, as the favorite still in the West? They brought everyone back.
Yes.
Are there any additions to you, Spencer, you're shaking your head, that stick out? You're like, this addition puts that team above the Nuggets.
Yeah, it comes down to pretty much the Clippers. And I thought the Clippers were the favorite this year without Harden because when PG and Kawhi are healthy, it's one of the best duos in the league. They are excellent at what they do. You have Kawhi on the defensive side, and you have playoff P. I know he got slandered that one year, but Paul George is a very good player, and he can do everything on both sides of the ball, offensively and defensively. I don't really think there's a favorite in the West. I do think the Nuggets are good, but I don't see them repeating. There's way too many teams, and there are way too many teams in the West who have had great additions in the offseason.
I'm going to have to disagree. They come out 4-0 to start the season right now. Jokic still looking like his old self, putting up those numbers, getting those rebounds, moving the ball like a gazelle. He owns the court when he plays, and he's doing it. He's done it all last year. He did it the year before. He's going to do it again. They are the front runners in the West.
4 games, keyword, 4 games in.
Yeah,
we're 4 games in.
Yeah, that's what I have to go off of, right?
4 games,
and they're undefeated.
In 4 games, do you know who they played in those
never
4
lost.
games?
And they still didn't lose.
You rarely see back-to-backs in the NBA, and you will not see it this year.
It'll
I can
happen.
promise you that.
It'll happen.
So, Joe, you think the West is stacked?
Yes.
But you think the Nuggets are still at the top?
Yes, absolutely.
So
that can happen.
So you could agree to disagree with Spencer?
Yes.
So, okay. Will, Nuggets still?
Yeah.
No one's competition?
Nah.
Not even with the additions, any teams?
No, because when he's bringing up the Clippers, I don't care. That's a bunch of prima donnas on one single team. You're going to put all 4 of those guys as a starting 5, and they're all just going to fight with each other. I mean, Harden's a big crybaby as is. I don't like his ball play. I don't like anything like that. So I could care less about the Clippers. I'm sticking with the Nuggets.
So we alluded to the back-to-back for the Nuggets. We alluded to the teams in the West and the East that could be competition. Who's your guys' sleeper team to not only make it into the postseason, but potentially even make a run in that postseason? Spencer, I'll start with you on this one.
Look, go ahead, say whatever you want, but
Bias.
the Timberwolves are very good. But I'm not going to pick them as my sleeper. I'm going to go with the Thunder, and that's solely off of how good Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is. I'm not really too high on Chet. A lot of you who watch the draft show know I'm not high on Wemby either. I'm just not high on centers who don't really play in the post and who don't really have a post game. But because of how good Shai is, this Thunder team could go so far. I know they got bounced in the play-in last year, but they are just a well-built team. You have Chet at the 5 who could be good. He has to put on weight. You have Lou Dort who's a defensive masterclass, and then you have Shai and Josh Giddey who can dish the rock to anyone. And let me remind you, there are plenty of shooters on the Thunder squad, so give me the Thunder as a sleeper pick.
Thunder in the West, I do really like, but my sleeper team in the East is going to be the 76ers. I mean, you do lose James Harden, but you have a little bit of chip on your shoulder. You still have MVP Joel Embiid, mind you, and you got your Philadelphia. Philly teams have had a great year coming out of 2023. I think the 76ers finally get their stuff done, get it together, and make a run this postseason.
Yeah, Philly Schmilly. I'm going Bulls.
This guy just loves his Chicago
DeMar
Bulls.
Go Bulls!
Yeah.
That'd be like the Washington Wizards because I'm from Maryland. I mean, come on.
You're going with the Wizards?
No.
Oh.
No.
I hope not.
My sleeper team, I'm just going to quickly say, you guys can bash me all you want. I'm going to say the Indiana Pacers. I think they're a decent pick to make a run. But, gentlemen, quickly down the line, we got to wrap this segment up. Finals winner and your league MVP, Spencer, and then down the line.
I think it's going to be the Clippers, guys. If this team can gel together, it's going to be good. And as for Finals MVP, 122 points in his first 3 games. It's going to be Luka. It's his year. He's gotten robbed the past 2.
Joe?
Nuggets, Bucks, Nuggets in 5, Jokic back-to-back MVP.
And Yocum.
Nuggets, Celtics, Jokic is going to be the MVP.
I don't want to be corny and pick the Nuggets, even though that's what I had on my paper. So I'm just going to go ahead and ride with Spencer to split the table up. We're going to go ahead and ride with the Clippers. But that's going to do it for our NBA segment. Coming up next, we have our NFL segment. The draft deadline just passed. A lot of moves made, but maybe not a lot of appealing moves made. We'll be right back on Plead Your Case. On our final segment, we're going over to the NFL, and we are talking about the trade deadline. Though there weren't a ton of moves, we had some big names go out in free agency. Gentlemen, we had the Washington Commanders kind of clean house in terms of their edge rushers, but before we talk about that, I'm wearing the black and silver for a reason. The Raiders cleared house. No more Josh McDaniels. The GM is fired. It's about time. The only problem is the Raiders still have Jimmy Garoppolo at quarterback. So we'll see what happens there.
Well, they benched him. We're good.
Yeah, they did bench him.
We're
We're going to give the rookie a chance. But trade deadline, obviously we had a ton of moves. Starting with Spencer, since I started with you two for the previous 2 segments. What was the biggest trade you saw from the past, let's say, week or so? Because the Eagles made a move as well.
Yeah, it does suck a little. We didn't really get any huge blockbuster trades. I think the biggest one comes from, like you mentioned, the Commanders one is Chase Young going to the 49ers to an already stacked defense, might I add. I mean, they're the top 3 defense in the league. And then you pick up Chase Young, the Ohio State alum, who has just played well for the past 2 years. It's almost like you're like, it was like a shocker to me. I didn't know why they signed him, but at the end of the day, it's another great defensive piece for the 49ers, and it just makes that Niners defense so much better than it already was.
Couldn't agree more. But one trade that I did think got swept under a rug a little bit is the Rasul Douglas trade to Buffalo. I mean, that's another piece that Buffalo has. I mean, they're already good enough. But another piece that Josh Allen can throw to in Rasul Douglas. Had a great season last year. Got him for a 3rd and 5th pick. In my opinion, that's a steal for that. I mean, it just gives them another weapon, and I think that's going to be a great update for the Buffalo Bills.
There was a trade I was looking forward to that ended up not happening because the Titans owners put a complete stop to this. There was some trade rumors going around about Derrick Henry possibly becoming a Baltimore Raven, and any Baltimore Raven fan out there, Ryan Martin, I know you feel god awful right now, and I don't care because I think the Titans owners did the smart thing, and that was veto that trade offer. But the one thing I'm actually upset about is the Steelers didn't fire Matt Canada. I don't know what they're thinking. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what they're waiting for. I mean, we played awful against Jacksonville last week. I mean, Kenny says he's playing Thursday, but you know what? Who cares? Tennessee just smoked the Falcons with Mayo Boy. So I just don't know what's going to happen this week, and I don't know why Canada's not going.
So obviously, there's some time for Canada still to leave. And, you know,
Okay,
there's a
yeah.
few weeks left. Maybe they just ride it out for the season and make all the Steelers fans miserable.
Yeah.
But we had Chase Young moved. We had Montez Sweat. Leonard Williams went to the Seattle Seahawks. There's been not a lot of big, huge names, as Spencer said, but there are moves that are worth draft pick-wise. The Bears, they went ahead. They moved a second-round pick, but they've got back-to-back first-round picks. Were there any moves that you felt the team lost completely on? They were just out of their mind with what they did. It's hard to judge right now. Obviously, a lot of draft picks wise of you know the Commanders. We'll see what they can make of it. But any losers off the bat for you guys?
That's my pick for the loser standpoint. That's the Commanders. I mean, you trade away two of your best defensive pieces. I mean, that's gonna be bad, especially in the rest of this season. I mean, you lose those guys, you play the same competition, you play the Eagles again. It's just going to be tough to try to get a rebuild off of this midseason, debacle. You have to do it because you're the Commanders and you need some sort of spark there in Washington. But unfortunately, you lose two great pieces, and one of them is on a potential Super Bowl winning team.
Not one that I think is losing, but I think one that will be interesting, and I think no one really knows how it's going to work, is the Josh Dobbs to the Vikings trade. You have Justin Jefferson coming back in a week or two, maybe. We haven't really heard any official, but he really didn't play too bad in Arizona. I just don't think the Cardinals had enough pieces around him. He's going to have the best wide receiver in the league when healthy with Justin Jefferson. You have TJ Hawkinson, who's played great, and let me remind you, one of the rookies, Jordan Addison, who has played great in Justin Jefferson's absence. You give all these offensive pieces, plus Alexander Madison and Joshua Dobbs, I think there's a chance that trade could work out in the favor of the Vikings, especially with Kirk Cousins going down for the rest of the year.
I think the Giants definitely lost their trade deal. If you're going to trade away one of your best defensive linemen to Seattle, who already has a semi-decent defensive line, I mean, this is the Seattle defense that ended up sacking Daniel Jones 11 times. If you're going to trade away one of your best defensive linemen to get almost nothing out of it except draft picks, I don't know what you already have enough problems as is, especially offensively. Last week is a big game to talk about itself. So for me, the Giants are just definitely the biggest losers, not for just the trade deadline, but this season in general.
So Spencer talked about the Dobbs trade to Minnesota, which is probably the most impactful trade off the bat. You know, you lose your starting quarterback to a torn Achilles and Kirk Cousins. You go and you get Josh Dobbs, who was okay with the Arizona Cardinals, but now you're exposing him to the weapons of Jordan Addison, exposing him to Justin Jefferson once he's back healthy. Do we think it's going to work out with Josh Dobbs, or do we think this is just going to plummet down for the Minnesota Vikings? And Spencer gave his feelings, so Joe or Will?
Yeah, no, I think it's going to work perfectly fine. There's a ton of offensive weapons there. They just haven't been able to really get it rolling with Kirk Cousins. Now that Dobbs has stepped in, he had a really decent start with the Cardinals at the beginning. And with these kind of weapons, Hawkinson, Addison, Jefferson, Son. Yeah, they're going to do – I think he's going to do just fine. Maybe even pick up the offense a little bit in Cousins' absence.
Couldn't agree more. I think Josh Dobbs is a phenomenal player, especially at the quarterback position. I mean, he did great things for Arizona in Kyler Murray's absence, and, he was a Pittsburgh Steeler. I did watch him on the Steelers. I had a lot of promise in Josh Dobbs, and I still do.
See, here's my problem with the whole Josh Dobbs doing good with the Cardinals. How can you say he's doing good when they're 1-7? The guy might pass for 200 yards on a good day, and you could argue he doesn't have the weapons like Minnesota has, but you put him in that offense with another mediocre offensive line, I just don't think it's going to be much of an impact for Minnesota. I mean, they're already starting their rookie Jaron Hall over Dobbs, which could be just a time stamp, but I just don't think Dobbs is going to work out.
So the Raiders won 2 games and clean house completely with a pathetic showing on Monday Night Football and one of the best receivers in the league. But it should work out, right?
I think it just comes down to as NFL fans hoping Dobbs will play well, because as much as we don't want to bring up that situation of the Raiders, Devontae Adams is wasting away a career. I think arguably he is in the prime of his career right now with how well he's been playing, and he just isn't getting thrown the ball. And the same thing with Justin Jefferson, a guy we haven't really seen at this caliber in forever. And I know he's injured, but even before that, he's not getting the ball much. You don't want to waste away these players' careers in Adams or Jefferson. We saw the thing with Stephon Diggs when he was on the Vikings. He really wasn't doing much, and then he goes to Buffalo. He's getting more balls thrown to him. So at the end of the day, I think it comes down to us hoping Dobbs will play well so we can see guys like Justin Jefferson break more records and play well. And the same goes to the Raiders. Hopefully, Aiden McConnell or whatever the Raiders decide to do.
Don't care.
It turns out to be somewhat good.
At this point, to clean house, I'm hoping for like a Drake May. I don't want Bo Nix. He's already like 30 years old in college.
Just glad the Browns aren't in this situation.
The
Browns, it's the first time in forever I don't have to worry.
Browns are going to be the Browns.
Exactly.
See, but when it comes to the Raiders, you have Jimmy G, who's like a veteran guy. He's made his way through starts and everything. He's
Pretty
just
boy.
playing poor.
Yep.
There's no other way to
He's
explain.
terrible.
To put it lightly, he's
Terrible.
playing poor, terrible,
Pathetic.
awful. It's egregious.
Yep.
Shout out Lanny for that word.
Thank you, Lanny.
But
Putrid.
moving forward
Sorry.
from the trade deadline, just real quick, what team do you think it's going to benefit the most out of what they got, whether it be right now or with the teams that got draft picks? Let's go down the line, Will, and then back down to me.
I'm hoping the Niners are going to be able to like thrive with Chase Young. They've been building on this defensive line all year. I mean, they now have 3 straight losses under their belt, which is absolutely not good. This is something that was not could have been seen of for this 49ers team coming
Shout
into
out the
this
Browns.
year. Shout out the Browns. Shout out the Browns. No, I'm hoping they can turn themselves around with Chase Young adding to that defensive line, hooking up with his former teammate from Ohio State, Nick Bosa. So we'll see if they can turn it around.
As much as I bashed them, it's got to be the Raiders. I mean, you start that poorly, and you got to make a change, and that they did. Cleaned out their head coach, who is not a great head coach in recent vicinity, and get rid of your general manager, trying to get things going in Vegas.
Yeah, and again, I don't want to do it as much as, but I think it's not even necessarily the trade, it's the clearinghouse thing. And I think at this point, I believe the only way you're going to get guys like Adams and Jacobs to stay is if they somehow pull the Caleb Williams card or one of these great college quarterbacks coming out in the next year. Because other than that, I mean, if you're Devontae Adams or Josh Jacobs, who saw great usage last year and this year aren't getting the same, those guys aren't going to want to stay. So I think the Raiders' hope is in the hands of getting a first, second, or third and getting a good quarterback from college.
Well, as a Raiders fan, I can only hope for a good quarterback for Devontae Adams. I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo just needs to be a bridge QB at this point.
Yes, I agree.
I mean, whether it's Shedeur, whether it be
Got to be somebody, man.
whether it be anybody out of this draft class, I'm more comfortable with them than Jimmy Garoppolo at this point. But gentlemen, that's going to wrap up our show. Thank you all for joining us here on another episode of Plead Your Case, our first episode of this semester. And there'll be plenty more content. Whether you're watching on the cable channel or our YouTube page, you can find it all on WCTV.
This has been a production of Waynesburg Community Television.